Hi there everybody, this is David, and we have a new interview here between GameStop and Kondo, and he's going to be talking about a lot of different things. Simultaneous worldwide releases in English and Japanese, revival of old IPs, brand new IPs coming out, what's next for the Trail series as well as the Ease series, and I do want to go through this with y'all because I've hit the high points, and I do think that is worth a sub as I try my best to get on through and hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. And with your like and your sub, I think that I can do it. So if you'd please help me out with that, I would definitely appreciate it. So it starts off saying, just this past week, Falcom released The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak in Europe and North America. The studio also, on the very same day as the release, announced Trails Through Daybreak True. That's coming out in English early next year. Additionally, Ys 10 Nordics is coming out in October. That's just a small look of what they are up to. So, as you can see, this is a very long article. I've gone through, I've highlighted what I believe are the high points, because otherwise there's just a lot here. If you do want to read it in its entirety though, I am going to include a link to that down in the video description, and you can check it out and read it, but I really just want to hit the high points right here, as the team is ready to showcase new ideas, new IPs, and their new business model, which leverages the studio's reputation in smaller scales to create unique projects and expand the JRPG genre. He speaks here, of course, about the introduction to Daybreak and saying, hey, this is a pretty good place to start. This has been going on for 20 years now. We want to create a good starting place. And Kondo himself says, yeah, this is a good place to start, which I've talked about too. He says that they handle this twofold, creating ample in-game material so players can reference characters and events and get them up to speed, and also characters kind of introduce themselves and reintroduce themselves in conversation so that players won't feel too lost. Then they move on and they pretty much ask the exact same question. Hey, what about Ys 10 Nordics? Is that a good starting place? And the thing about the Ys series, I can just tell you right now, is that pretty much any place in the Ys series is a good starting place except for Ys 2. That's the only one that's not a good starting place because it's a direct sequel to Ys 1, but all the other games are just like an entry in Adol's diary, so they're all kind of pretty much self-contained adventures where Adol is shipwrecked. He is in a brand new land and he has to kind of explore it on his own, and he's learning all about it just as we, the players, are learning about it too. So Kondo even says, hey, you know, it's a fine starting place because of that. Adol's travels throughout the world always feel rather new. Then, this is important. What else should we look forward to? I wish this back to the top thing would go away. It's very annoying. He goes on to say, more likely than not, fans, when they think of Falcom, they think of our series like Ys and Trails. However, looking at the past and Falcom's history, you will see that we used to release games in multiple different yet related genres. You might notice that those have gone down over the years. Yeah, it's just become Ys Trails all the time. However, thanks to the fact that so many of the developers at Falcom have been there for a while, there's a lot of accumulated knowledge and know-how, so we can start to make games like we used to in many different genres that aren't part of these two main series. So, what other games did they used to make? Well, first of all, the Legend of Heroes series started off as part of the Dragon Slayer series, and then there was also the Xanadu series. From that, there was the Fax Xanadu, which we got back on the NES, and the original Legend of Heroes Dragon Slayers games were much more traditional JRPGs with world maps and, you know, turn-based battles. Think of like Dragon Quest, games like that. They were very traditional type games. They also made a bunch of different games on the PSP. They made Gurumin, a monstrous adventure, which was a lot of fun action RPGs. They just make a ton of stuff like the Zwei games as well. Lots of fun stuff that they used to make that they don't make any longer. So he goes on to say, it might take a few years yet, but in the meantime, I'd love for people to keep playing Ys and Trails, but please do look forward to new IPs as they come out slowly. Brand new IPs. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years' time people will say positively, oh wow, Falcom's really changed. They've really broadened what they're doing and more. So he doesn't want to become a Trails ease machine. He wants to continue those, of course, as their flagship titles, but branch off into other things, kind of how like Square Enix does, Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest as their flagship titles, but they also branch off into other things like Bravely and Octopath and all sorts of other different stuff. Then they go on to say, because Falcom is relatively small compared to a lot of other studios, that gives us a lot more flexibility and the ability to challenge ourselves and try out many different things. Whereas other studios, they invest so much money into their games that if one fails, that could be the death of the studio. And we've seen that before, where a certain company that shall remain nameless buys up a studio, they create a hit, and then they, X them out of existence right afterwards, which is crazy. But anyway, he says, we want to use the unique position that we're in to be able to continue to create JRPGs and bring them to people, because they always exist and are not solely tied to some of the larger companies that have a budget. Then he asks about the Trails series. We're on the 4th arc. How many arcs are left? When is the series going to end? The series has progressed to the point where its main story is 80 to 90% complete. So while there will be games that come out, and those could be in the form of another arc after this, it will not continue on too much longer. You will not see an arc as big as Cold Steel again. Though we're currently celebrating the 20th anniversary of the series, you will not see a 30th or a 40th anniversary. He said before, yes, Trails will continue, but it will not continue on Zemuria. They need to end it, and that's what he wants to do, because so many people are like, wow, this has been going on for like literally a lifetime. 20 years, and people are overwhelmed. So maybe the next arcs will, I would imagine that they wouldn't last any more than 10 years, because that is a lot. But he just wants to bring it to a different continent, maybe a different world, maybe even a different time period within Zemuria, maybe the Dark Ages, who knows. Then he goes on to starting a major new series. It says, as for a direct successor to the Trail series, there is nothing specifically planned. We're just extremely focusing on finishing up Trails. However, in terms of new IPs, there's actually several things that are actively being worked on right now. So again, going back to those new IPs, there are several of them, brand new IPs, brand new, that are being worked on right now. Nothing that he can discuss though. Then it says, even though you might have been scared because it's a game that no one's ever heard of before in terms of IP and characters, the fact that you've created something, that you know that there's something out there, and that you want to show to other people, it's what allows us to bring these new games, and it's why we want to. So he just wants to kind of move on and experiment and formulate his craft right here. He then goes on to talk about different companies. He says Atlas, for example. We've seen studios like Atlas, for example, that have these sudden booms in Western countries that set forth these resurgences. Then he talks about Atlas. He says, as the Western market has finally started to accept, appreciate, and be hungry for these Japanese RPGs, ultimately it feels like less studios are making them. We're probably the smallest makers, but companies like Capcom, Breath of Fire, and Konami, Suikoden, who used to have strong JRPG series, have largely backed away from them. Ain't that the truth? So yeah. So he's saying, there's a lot more people who want these games, but less people are actually making them. It's pretty much Atlas, Falcom, Nice, and Square Enix. That's pretty much it for the most part. I mean, there's other ones out there, but you guys know what I'm talking about right here. Then it says, talking about localization. Do you think the company will ever reach a place where the Japanese and English versions of the games are released simultaneously? Yes, we'd love for them to come out at the same time. That's actually one of the things that we're working with Nice America to do. Decrease the time as we go forward in the future. We understand the necessity to have the games come out as soon as possible, but we understand the importance of quality and need to remain that as well. We will never sacrifice that quality in order to get a game out quickly. So it's about finding that balance. So yeah, they do want to get it out quick, but of course they do still want a quality translation. So this is exciting news as far as I'm concerned, as far as Falcom is concerned. We're getting more ease. We're getting more Trails. The Trail series is ramping up. There's going to be another Trail series after it. There's going to be revived IPs, and there's going to be new IPs as well. the future of Falcom is looking bright. I was smiling ear to ear as I was reading this interview right here, and now I want to know from y'all, what do you feel about this interview? What do you feel is in store for the future of Falcom? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.